The morning sun cast a golden glow across Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. The sailors of the United States Pacific Fleet were going about their regular Sunday routines, some still asleep in their bunks, others preparing for morning church services, and many looking forward to a day of rest. None of them knew that within hours, their lives, and the course of world history, would change forever. The calm waters of Pearl Harbor, where 82 years ago, one of the most pivotal moments of the 20th century unfolded. These peaceful waters once ran red with American blood, and the serene sky above was filled with Japanese warplanes. This story encompasses not just an attack, but a tale of courage, sacrifice, and a nation forever transformed. Before we tell the story of that fateful December morning, we need to understand why it happened. The 1930s saw rising tensions between the United States and Japan. Japan had embarked on an aggressive expansion across Asia, seeking resources and territory. The United States responded with economic sanctions, including a crucial oil embargo that threatened to cripple Japan's military ambitions. The Japanese military leaders faced a choice: either abandon their dreams of empire or strike first against the only power capable of stopping them. They chose war, but they knew they needed to eliminate the U.S. Pacific Fleet to have any chance of success. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of the Pearl Harbor attack, had spent time in America. He knew the industrial might of the United States, warning his superiors that Japan could only hope for 6 months to a year of military success before America's full power would be brought to bear. In utmost secrecy, Japan began planning Operation Z, the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. 6 aircraft carriers, 2 battleships, 3 cruisers, 9 destroyers, 8 tankers, 23 submarines, and 408 aircraft were assembled for the mission. The fleet departed from Tankan Bay in the Kurile Islands on November 26, 1941, maintaining complete radio silence as they crossed the Pacific Ocean. The United States was not completely unaware of the possibility of war. American intelligence had broken parts of Japan's diplomatic code, and tensions were high. But few believed Japan would dare attack Hawaii, thousands of miles from Japan's home waters. This confidence would prove to be a fatal mistake. December 7th began like any other Sunday in paradise. The weather was perfect: clear skies, light winds, and excellent visibility. At 6 a.m., the first wave of Japanese aircraft lifted off from their carriers, located 230 miles north of Oahu. The Japanese had timed their attack perfectly: Sunday morning, when many American sailors would be off guard and their ships would be lined up neatly in port. At 7:02 a.m., 2 Army radar operators at Opana Point detected a large group of aircraft approaching from the north. They reported their findings to a lieutenant at the information center, who assumed they were American B-17 bombers scheduled to arrive that morning from California. This misidentification would prove catastrophic. The first wave of 183 Japanese aircraft reached Oahu at 7:55 a.m. The formation included torpedo bombers, high-level bombers, dive bombers, and fighters. Commander Mitsuo Fuchida, leading the attack, sent the famous coded message Tora, 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 back to the carriers, indicating complete surprise had been achieved. The initial focus was on Battleship Row, where the pride of the Pacific Fleet lay moored. The USS Arizona, USS Oklahoma, USS California, USS West Virginia, USS Tennessee, USS Maryland, USS Pennsylvania, and USS Nevada were all present. The Japanese pilots had trained extensively for this moment, practicing torpedo runs in shallow waters, similar to Pearl Harbor's depth. The first torpedo struck the USS Oklahoma at 7:56 a.m. Within minutes, the peaceful Sunday morning erupted into chaos. The sky filled with black anti-aircraft fire as American sailors rushed to their battle stations. But for many ships, it was already too late. The USS Arizona took a direct hit from an armor-piercing bomb that penetrated the forward ammunition magazine. The resulting explosion was catastrophic, lifting the massive battleship out of the water and splitting it in two. In less than 9 minutes, the Arizona sank, taking 1,177 of her crew members with her. The ship burns to this day, leaking oil that locals call the tears of the Arizona. The USS Oklahoma capsized after multiple torpedo hits, trapping hundreds of sailors inside her overturned hull. Rescue crews could hear the trapped men banging on the ship's hull for days afterward. They managed to cut through and save 32 men, but 429 Oklahoma crew members perished. Across the harbor, similar scenes of destruction unfolded. The USS California, USS West Virginia, and USS Nevada were all hit. The Nevada actually managed to get underway, making a brave dash for the harbor entrance. But Japanese pilots, recognizing the danger of a ship blocking the narrow channel, concentrated their attacks on her until she was forced to beach herself to avoid sinking. The second wave of Japanese aircraft arrived at 8:54 am, focusing on ships that had survived the first attack and targeting military facilities around Pearl Harbor. By this time, American defenses were better organized, and the second wave encountered heavier anti-aircraft fire. At Fort Island Naval Air Station, Hickam Field, Wheeler Field, and other military installations across Oahu, American planes were lined up wing to wing to prevent sabotage. This made them perfect targets for Japanese fighters and bomber crews. By the end of the attack, nearly 350 American aircraft were destroyed or damaged. Despite the chaos and confusion, countless acts of American heroism emerged. Doris Miller, an African-American mess attendant on the USS West Virginia, manned a machine gun and shot down several Japanese aircraft, despite having no formal weapons training. He would later become the first African-American to receive the Navy Cross. Chief Petty Officer John William Finn set up a machine gun in an exposed position at Kaneohe Bay Naval Air Station and fired on Japanese aircraft for over 2 hours, despite being wounded multiple times. He would receive the Medal of Honor for his actions. The aftermath of the attack was devastating. In just 2 hours, the Japanese had killed 2,403 Americans, wounded 1,178 others, sunk or severely damaged 18 ships, and destroyed or damaged 347 planes. The USS Arizona, USS Oklahoma, USS California, USS West Virginia, USS Utah, USS Cassin, USS Downs, USS Shore, USS Oglala, and the floating dry dock YFD-2 were either sunk or damaged beyond repair. By 9:45 am, the last Japanese aircraft had departed. Admiral Chuichi Nagumo, commanding the Japanese carrier force, decided against launching a third wave attack. This decision would be debated by historians for decades. A third wave could have destroyed Pearl Harbor's fuel storage tanks and repair facilities, potentially crippling the Pacific Fleet for months or years. The Japanese attack achieved tactical surprise and dealt a severe blow to the U.S. Pacific Fleet. However, it failed in several crucial aspects. All three American aircraft carriers, the USS Enterprise, USS Lexington, and USS Saratoga, were away from Pearl Harbor during the attack. These carriers would prove crucial in the coming Pacific War. Additionally, the Japanese did not destroy Pearl Harbor's infrastructure. The repair facilities, fuel storage tanks, and submarine base remained intact. This allowed the U.S. Navy to begin salvage operations immediately. Most of the ships sunk or damaged at Pearl Harbor were eventually raised, repaired, and returned to service. Perhaps most importantly, the attack united the American people as nothing else could have. The next day, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed Congress, calling December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. Congress declared war on Japan with only one dissenting vote. When Germany and Italy declared war on the United States days later, America was fully committed to World War II. The aftermath of Pearl Harbor transformed American society. Millions of men and women enlisted in the armed forces or went to work in defense industries. The massive mobilization of American industrial might would eventually overwhelm Japan and Germany. But the road to victory would be long and costly. The attack also had darker consequences. Fear and suspicion led to the internment of approximately 120,000 Japanese Americans, most of them US citizens, in concentration camps. This violation of civil rights remains a painful reminder of how war can lead to injustice even in a democratic society. The salvage operation at Pearl Harbor began almost immediately. Navy divers worked in hazardous conditions to recover bodies and equipment from the sunken ships. The USS California, USS West Virginia, and USS Nevada were eventually raised and repaired. The USS Oklahoma was raised but never returned to service. The USS Arizona remains where she sank, now serving as a memorial to all those who died that day. The long-term strategic impact of Pearl Harbor was profound. The attack gave the United States the moral high ground in World War II, allowing Roosevelt to focus American industrial might on defeating Nazi Germany while simultaneously fighting Japan in the Pacific. The surprise attack united the American people and transformed the United States into a global superpower. For Japan, the attack would ultimately prove disastrous. Admiral Yamamoto's prediction proved prophetic. After 6 months of victories, Japan's advance was halted at the Battle of Midway in June 1942. The war would end in August 1945 with Japan's cities in ruins and 2 atomic bombs forcing their surrender. The legacy of Pearl Harbor extends far beyond World War II. The attack fundamentally changed America's role in the world. The United States abandoned its traditional isolationism, and emerged as a global superpower committed to maintaining international peace and security. The lesson of Pearl Harbor, that America must maintain strong defenses and remain vigilant, influenced U.S. military and foreign policy throughout the Cold War and beyond. Today, Pearl Harbor remains a powerful symbol of sacrifice and resilience. The USS Arizona Memorial, straddling the sunken battleship where 1,177 sailors and Marines remain entombed, draws more than 2 million visitors annually. The memorial's white structure represents a bridge between war and peace, defeat and triumph, death and life. Oil still seeps from the Arizona's fuel tanks, creating rainbow-colored slicks on the harbor's surface. Some call these black tears, a reminder that the wounds of Pearl Harbor have not fully healed. The memorial includes a wall listing all those who died on the Arizona, their names preserved in marble for future generations. The survivors of Pearl Harbor, now few in number, have dedicated their lives to ensuring that their story is not forgotten. Their testimony reminds us of both the horror of war and the courage of those who face it. Many survivors have chosen to have their ashes interred with their shipmates in the Arizona, their final resting place with the crew they served alongside on that fateful morning. The attack on Pearl Harbor teaches us enduring lessons about the importance of preparedness, the cost of underestimating potential adversaries, and the devastating impact of war. It reminds us that peace must never be taken for granted, and that eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. As we stand here at Pearl Harbor today, the waters are calm and peaceful. Tourist boats ferry visitors to the Arizona Memorial, where they can peer into the clear water and see the shadowy outline of the battleship below. But beneath this tranquil surface lies a story of profound significance, a story of sacrifice, resilience and transformation that changed the course of history. The sailors who died at Pearl Harbor came from every corner of America, farm boys from Kansas, factory workers from Detroit, students from California. They represented the diversity and strength of America, and their sacrifice reminds us of the price of freedom and the importance of defending our values. Pearl Harbor also teaches us about the importance of reconciliation. Today, Japan and the United States are close allies, their former enmity transformed into friendship and cooperation. This transformation shows that even the deepest wounds of war can heal, though we must never forget the lessons learned from conflict. As we conclude our story of Pearl Harbor, we should remember that history is not just about dates and facts, it's about people. It's about the sailors who died at their posts, the nurses who treated the wounded, the civilians who watched in horror as their world exploded into war, and the nation that rose from the ashes of defeat to achieve final victory. The story of Pearl Harbor is a reminder that even in our darkest hours, courage and determination can light the way forward. The men and women who lived through the day showed us the meaning of bravery, sacrifice, and resilience. Their legacy lives on in the freedoms we enjoy today and in our commitment to ensuring that such a surprise attack never happens again. As the sun sets over Pearl Harbor today, casting long shadows across the memorial, we remember those who died here. Their sacrifice was not in vain. From the tragedy of Pearl Harbor emerged a stronger, more united America, a nation that would not only win World War II but go on to become a beacon of democracy and freedom for the entire world. The lesson of Pearl Harbor echoes across the decades: freedom must be defended, peace must be protected, and the price of both is eternal vigilance. As we face the challenges of our own time, we would do well to remember the courage, sacrifice, and resilience shown by the Americans who lived through that date which will live in infamy.